So, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. How are we doing? We are back. I am back. I was supposed to do a stream yesterday, but I was working. I was working hard. Got back. Then I was like, well, you know, got to do a show, right? So, I'm settling down. I'm unwinding. I'm thinking about the game, and I'm sort of like, I'm in two minds. I'm in two minds. Do I do the watch along for it, or do I just do the show before? And then what happens is then people arrive at the house, and I'm like, well, I can't do a show now. And it's like, well, I can't do the show early, so I've got to do the show later. I'll do the watch along or something. They stayed during the time that the game was playing. And then there were people sleeping next door, literally as soon as people left. So I was just like, it's just so inconvenient. It's so inconvenient. But as promised, that there will always be a match reaction. If I didn't do any watch alongs or anything at all, I'd still be doing match reactions to every single game played, and we'll be discussing what went down in those games. But before we jump into anything, do make sure that you are liking the content and subscribing if you are new. I would massively appreciate that. You'll be doing me a whole world of favors, a whole world of good, and yeah, good stuff. Just gonna sort out something real quick. There we go. Just loading this up. Just got this in the background, so I've got a bit of a live feed that I've got going off on the side of me, so I can see what's going on. But in other news, Tottenham Hotspur's pre-season game against Leicester City got called off because of a couple of puddles on the pitch that they couldn't clear. Sucks to be a Spurs fan that's travelled all the way to Asia to see Spurs play, and then to find out that they're not going to play, and probably not going to reschedule the game either. So that's a double disgust for Tottenham Hotspur supporters. But we're not Tottenham fans here. We're not Tottenham fans. We are United fans, and we are feasting well this morning. We are feeling very lavish. We're feeling very chilled. Very chilled, like it is a Sunday, and it is a Sunday. So double delight for us. So double disgust for Tottenham, double delight. Well, double disgust for Arsenal as well, because they also, let's not beat around the bush here, they lost probably the first time in any Premier League club or any European clubs, or even maybe any club in the world. They've lost twice. They've lost twice in one fixture. Probably the first club in the world to actually do that. And I don't know if that's ever happened before. Maybe it's happened with MLS clubs before, but it didn't make sense to me to begin with. Basically, didn't make sense whatsoever to play a full 90-minute match. Regardless of the score at the end of the game, you'll go on to play a penalty shootout. And thinking, well, you cannot get more American than that. I'm putting it out there. You cannot get more American than that. Like it's not possible. It's not possible to get more American than that. Actually, there is. You could complete the 90 minutes. You could do the penalty shootout, and then what will happen is that if both teams get a participation trophy, that would be proper American, proper American. So no one actually won the preseason game. It's just, oh well, it's just some stats. It's just some numbers on a score sheet, but no one actually won the game. Sorry, guys, but everyone's a winner around here. But yeah, Arsenal fans, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? So I'll tell you one thing. for a lot of the talk, the pre-match talk, the build-up to everything. Um, there was a lot of there's a lot of things that people had to say about this game. A lot of things people had to say. The very repetitive narrative was like, "Oh, this isn't a preseason game. This isn't a preseason game, guys. It's going to be a proper combative, tense affair. It's going to be a proper game. It's going to feel like it's a Premier League game, and we should treat it like it's a Premier League game as well." And maybe that's what it maybe that is exactly what it entails to being. But yeah, it's I was actually quite happy to quickly summarize everything before I go deep diving into anything. It's actually a really impressive result, impressive performance. You know, it's I think for what United fans want to look for in preseason in this team, it looked good. It did what it needed to do. What we were looking for, we got. We saw it. Um, Even though it's a bit frustrating that it wasn't actually a Premier League game, and that we didn't see this like an actual result. But for what the fine details of the game entailed, I thought it was a very good performance. A couple standout performers or standout key players in different moments of the game. But just the approach in and of itself was actually what I was hoping it would be, but not what I was expecting it to be. United played a little bit better than I was anticipating, and Arsenal played a little bit worse. Right? I'm not gonna say that, oh, we beat this world class Arsenal team and everything, because I thought Arsenal were below par. Definitely long way below par. A few players missing from them. Not in terms of players missing from the starting 11, although technically you could argue that case, but players missing performance wise. But if you ever want this to happen anywhere, it's preseason. You'd want it to happen in preseason. So at least that's a saving grace if you're an Arsenal fan. Definitely a saving grace. But you know, just for rivalry's sake and bragging rights, happy days for us. But it's a bit rainy over. It's forecasted for rain over in your camp for the next couple of days until you play Barcelona. So best of luck to you and bouncing back there. But besides that point there, Manchester United, good performance, and a lot of players that stood up, made themselves well accounted for. I thought Bruno had a fairly good reintroduction on his first game back in football for this preseason. Kobe Mainu again, a name that has started from minute one in all three preseason games thus far, and my God, that kid is looking like an absolute baller in the making. An absolute baller in the making. The guy just did not shrink to anything. Like dealt with Leeds pressure, dealt with the Lyon pressure, dealt with the Arsenal pressure. He's just passed every test. He is passing every test that he is getting put down in front of him, which is, I think it's more than I was expecting. I was sort of expecting, for a guy around this sort of squad role, he's gonna, excel in some games. He's not gonna feel, relegate himself in a few other games, but in terms of overall balance, he's showing almost an essence of maturity in how he's playing his role in the team. Like he's getting pressed, he's getting challenged. His distribution is clean, it's simple. Occasionally he plays that ball forward. He's contributing to the offensive side of the game, and he's doing a fairly good job defensively. Now, I said that in the Leeds game, he was almost not as involved defensively. I thought in the Lyon game there was maybe one or two elements where he wasn't involved defensively, barring maybe one or two sort of last grasp challenges to sort of deflect a shot, block a shot, or just being in the way. But Arsenal game, he's, you couldn't really pick out any flaws. You can't pick out any flaws to his performance. So he's evidently getting better. He's evidently growing into this team, and the fact that he's been surrounded by essentially United's first team, he looked like he's always been there. Honestly, he didn't look out of place at all. He looked like he's been playing for United's first team for at least 2, 3 seasons now, and that's a rarity to find in someone who's just come through your academy. That is quite rare to find, and that usually, players that have that sort of impact when they come into the team are usually end up being your mainstay players, or turn into your more superstar level talents. So it's like all credits to Kobe Minu. Ten Hag and all of his other peers have all said the same thing as well. He would have played more games at the tail end of last season if it wasn't for his injury. So read into that what you will. They're singing his praises. They were singing them back then. They're singing them again now. And I think we should do the same. I think we should be singing Kobe's praises. And fingers crossed, the role that is being proposed that Kobe's going to be playing going into next season, that the club will see through to it. That he will actually get the minutes that he deserves, I would say. Um, but that's then, and this is now. So maybe Kobe has a drop off during preseason where he ends up sort of going back into that sort of position where it's like, but do we loan him out or do we keep him? Questions. It's a bit of a chin scratcher, right? And I suppose thus far he's looking very much like he's got a very key role going into in the squad going into the new season. But basically, happy days for Kobe Minu as it, for what it's forecasted with his season preparations, and fingers crossed that he lives up to it and keeps on going, keeps this momentum going, plays through all of the other preseason games, and he's involved with the first game of the season against Wolverhampton Wanderers, and that's the target for Kobe Minu, to try and push as hard as you possibly can to end up featuring. Essentially, if you're going to stick your ambitions high, your target is to make that team sheet for the Wolverhampton Wanderers game, and that's the same target that I would reiterate to all the other guys in similar positions. But that's literally, this is just Kobe Minu we're talking about. There's a couple of other names as well that feature in this game that are really, really good. Keep Minu, he'll be needed. There is no way Casemiro is not getting a red card all season. Well, no, he's going to get red card. Well, it depends really if the officiating is equally as woeful as last season. I'll tell you what, if the officiating is absolutely god awful again, then I'm not holding out hope for anybody in this United team. Even if it's like the friendliest player you've ever met in your life, that guy's getting a red card by someone. He's definitely getting red carded by someone. The officiating is just so god awful in this country that there's just so many unwarranted decisions. It's like both of Casemiro's red cards were not technically red cards, because every other time that the same challenge or worse has occurred, they've not been matched with the same punishment. The only one that's seen any punishment with any similarities in terms of things outside of the game, where someone's been given a red card, is Mitrovic, ironically, against United, where he was putting his hands on the referee. Casemiro was grabbing the collar of another player's shirt and trying to push him away to diffuse a situation. People are saying he's got his hands around his throat, but we've seen numerous times after said incident people getting physical and putting their hands on other players, hands in faces, balled up fists, hands on players' throats. No, no, just turn a blind eye. Turn a blind eye. Just we didn't see that. We didn't see that. The only person that's allowed to be punished for that is Casemiro. He's the only person that's allowed to be punished for it. No one else. No one else. Mm. Seriously, that you might as well consider it being like a witch hunt. You might as well consider it being a witch hunt, or the egos of the officials in this country trying to absolutely cock everything up for teams each and every week, because the officiating is so inconsistent. That's what I'm talking about. Casemiro is on the top of VAR's most wanted list, and I'll tell you what, there is actually like it's a real thing where referees will communicate with each other and they'll point out players and say, "Oh, you better watch out for that one. He's quite aggressive. He might leave extras in on players." Those conversations do happen, right? They do happen between officials, right? I can't remember who it was before, but I'm pretty sure that there was a conversation that has been had before that was recorded somewhere or as part of an interview for a publication where a referee said that, yeah, there's certain players that referees will point out and say, well, that player's has got potential to putting in a very rough challenge. So, just make sure that you're being extra harsh on him to make sure that he's controlling his temper in a game or something along those lines. Those conversations will happen, but it's such a stupid thing that shouldn't happen, because I know you'll get rough and tough players and all of that, right? But it's like the refereeing decisions are so inconsistent. It's like one player will do one challenge. It's like the same referee on what was it? The same game weekend, right? Was the actual referee for what was it? Leicester versus Chelsea. I can't remember who it was, but someone put studs up challenge onto someone's ankle, right? Studs onto someone's ankle. Andre Mariner, that's the name of the referee, looked at that and went, well, every single morsel in my body was telling me that I should be giving a red card for that. But no, I'm just going to wave it off. Casemiro, when Mariner goes to do VAR for our game against, what was it? It wasn't against Leeds, it was against Southampton. Pretty sure it's against Southampton. Casemiro leads studs into the ball, right? He's challenging for the ball. His foot rolls over the ball because physics, science exists. Without science and physics, we would cease to exist. We'd all just die. We'd all die without physics, right? It's just going to happen. So, foot rolls over the ball, accidentally makes contact, and it's like, okay, fair enough, foul. Andy Taylor goes over. It's like, yellow card for you, Casemiro. Just got to be a little bit careful. Just calm it down a little bit, and yeah, let's just carry on. But no, 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 no. Andre Mariner's just like, oh, shoot, I I gave a warning for something that was a lot worse than this, but actually, Anthony Taylor, I want you to go have a look at this because it might be a lot worse than what you've perceived it as. And it's just like, why are you highlighting situations that don't need to be highlighted? You don't need to do that, because and that's the thing. They pick and choose what fouls they want to highlight. They will pick and choose a foul. And I'll tell you what, this does actually tie in to this pre-season game that we've just played against Arsenal, because I've seen on the AFTV, right, that some of the Arsenal fans are actually, um, most notably one, and I can imagine that you can guess who it was, right, that was making this excuse. But man, these people are just like, oh, well, that's not in the spirit of the game. How dare they make strong challenges? They could have injured somebody. Oh, well, according to fact, not fiction, according to fact, the only person to actually get injured from that game was a United player. Amad Diallo left the stadium on crutches. That's the only player that left the match on like injured at all. So Lisandro Martinez clocking half of that Arsenal team and wiping them out, I'm all for that because everyone's talking about this is not a preseason game. This is not a preseason game. No, no, no chance, no chance. It's not a preseason game. Okay, then. So if it's not a preseason game, so in the nature of being combative, right, and putting effort and energy and putting a bit of fight in the game, getting stuck in, right? It's just like I don't understand it. You ask for a game that you take seriously. The team, your club, doesn't take the game seriously. Your opponents take it seriously. You don't like that. You call that team out for saying, oh, you took it too seriously. Okay, so what was your pre match build up for then? What are you talking about? What are you smoking? What is this about? The exact words I heard used were that we are over aggressive. But and you know what? That it's not even just on that case that they're over aggressive. I'm seeing some people talking about, oh well, the only reason why United were aggressive into challenges is because Granit Xhaka isn't playing. Because Granit Xhaka wasn't playing is the reason why you couldn't give enough of a shit about that game to actually compete. So the only person that realistically left that stadium fuming with the result was the manager. Mikel Arteta is probably the only person that represented Arsenal that day that's actually pissed off that his team lost the game. But they didn't just lose once, no. They managed to lose twice in one fixture. Penalty shootouts. Right? At least have a little bit of we'll go 1-for-1s, we'll beat you on the penalty shootouts, right? You can have a bit of playful banter with it, right? Because it's pre-season, it's all fun and games, right? Have a bit of playful banter with it. But nope. Fabio Vieira decides it's a good idea, it's high time to sky it out of the stadium. Sky that ball. Someone in Canada has just complained about getting hit in the back of the head by a football that's just landed from orbit. Fabio Vieira, you got some questions to answer. Someone in Canada is just being hit by your penalty. Or maybe it's not Fabio Vieira's penalty, maybe it's Harry Kane's penalty from the World Cup. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that ball's finally come down from orbit. But Jesus Christ, it's just like you give so much energy for a game, but you don't match it in the case of the result. And I suppose United fans could have ended up being just as insufferable as this, where it's just like, well, it's our preseason game, and we can be jovious about beating Arsenal in any case, in any scenario, right? Of course we can. We can be jovious about it. But I'll tell you one thing. Manu made 105 million rice look boiled in the bag of rice. Mate, you might as well have just, Kobe Manu might as well have just bagged rice up and stuck Uncle Ben's on it. You might as just leave him in a Walmart shelving unit or something. Bag him up, stick some Uncle Ben's on it. Happy days. Sit on the shelf, buddy. You can get dusted off when you decide to actually turn up for a game. Just a thought. But yeah, Minu, it's crazy. Minu actually looked like a proper, DM midfielder, whereas Rice, looked like he wanted to do something on a pitch but couldn't afford to do anything to save his life. So yeah. Big ups to those who rate our Declan Rice as a world-class player, and big ups to those also who actually are real with it and actually said that Declan Rice is not a world-class midfielder because no one could actually tell you what his specialty in the midfield is. He's a great footballer, don't get me wrong, great footballer, seriously good quality player. But man's not a specialist. He's not a specialist. He's not a specialist at all. It's like McTominay. No one knows what his game is. Really, no one knows for the life of anybody what his specialty is. But Declan Rice is just a much better quality, a ridiculously much better quality version of Scott McTominay, right? And if you want someone that's like, jack of all trades, master of none, then maybe Rice is your go-to option. Maybe that is the go-to player. Maybe that is. I mean, if you wanted someone that's a bit more specialised for certain roles in a deep midfield position, then you would have opted to go with Moises Caicedo, and that's arguably what I would have wanted to have gone for as, profile wise. That's the sort of player that I would have wanted to go for. But anywho, um, few other stand-up performers in this pre-season game. Shout outs for Jadon Sancho for a sumptuous finish. Um, Very high power, just straight into the roof of the net. No, acute finishing or little dinks and touches here and around the box when the goalkeeper comes to match the challenge. He was just like, yeah, no, suck on this. Proper pile driver straight over the top of Aaron Ramsdale, and to double the leads. But I mean, Bruno Fernandes's goal, just struck it from distance. A little bit of luck that Ramsdale has fumbled it with his with how Mark Goldbridge puts it, spaghetti hands, and really his spaghetti hands, wrists weak. Mum's spaghetti or something. Maybe a bit knees. I mean, some of his goalkeeping, is enough to make you a bit knees weak, isn't it? Especially if you're an Arsenal fan. But yeah, Big T, the burst of speed that started Sancho goal was tasty to watch. I know, right? And I mean, it's quite hilarious that the bozo gene from Gabriel comes back to haunt him again. It's just like, come on. Like, that's just a typical ball to control, but he completely miskicks it. But Sancho is actually awake. He's awake and he's straight onto it like that. He sniffs out the danger and he's onto it in a flash, and a good show of pace as well, because Sancho's not, it's not lightning quick, but he used his acceleration well, got onto the ball and got away from Gabriel Magalhaes. So, lovely stuff to see from Jadon Sancho, especially from a striker's perspective and instinct. And sometimes with strikers, you don't try to do the cute little stuff, the little tips and tricks in and around the box when you get through on one with the goalkeeper. Sometimes your strikers, classic strikers, will just pile drive it with so much conviction. It's just like you don't even doubt it. You don't even doubt it. It's not like when strikers go one on one and they just like try to open the body up to place it around the goalkeeper. Just like it's the biggest fuck off thundercunt shot you've ever seen, right? Just no, like you don't pull any punches. You just straight lace the bastard, literally lace the bastard straight through the ball, up into the roof of the net. Like classic, absolutely classic. It's the sort of finish you want to see, right? It's the sort of finish you go, fuck yeah, give me some of that. And big ups to Sancho for doing that. Um, as for some other names, I mean, Martinez, lovely stuff. Love to see it. Just not literally, just does not give a toss. And European lad on Twitter, the Ajax super fan, if you will, saying that Lissandro Martinez would kill to win, and the guy looked like he wanted to kill to win that game, and fair plays to him, absolutely fair plays to him. Big ups, absolutely big ups. Like clock everyone. Like I mean, the challenge on Bukayo Saka, he gets a bit of a shove from another player. I can't remember who it was, and he just goes and destroys Bukayo Saka. Just absolutely, just ends him. It's like, yes, thank you. That's what I want to see. I mean, he's the only yellow card that was given in that game as well, I think, on United side. No, Maguire and Gabriel Jesus also got carded in that game. But if you want to say what a player's going to get yellow carded, you want to see it be that. Just in that case, just go and clock a guy. Martinez always plays every game like it's a Champions League final. We need 10 more of them. Exactly. 100% we do. We need a lot of big characters in this team that every game is taken with utmost seriousness, right? And that you are competing minute 1 to 90 and you are fighting for every inch on that pitch. You're fighting for it. You're not sort of, oh, well, I guess I can give up a little bit. No, you are 100% on it from start to finish, first whistle to last whistle. And Martinez, he's got the perfect attitude on a football pitch. He's got the perfect attitude. And thankfully, he's showing the attitude in the defensive aspect. But he's got so much composure when he needs to then start creating moves going forwards. Like, he's got so much composure. The guy is just so chilled on the ball. Honestly, that like proper South American, just so calm, so chilled, so composed on the ball. Just you got some players pressing me. Who cares? I don't care, bro. I've got the situation completely under wraps, under control. A proper bulldog South American bulldozer of a player. Take height away from it. I mean, if the guy was 6'2", no one would be dissing Lissandro. No one would. But the guy's short. But the fact of the matter is, the guy might be 5'10", right, or 5'9", whatever height it is. The guy will play like he's got the respect of a 6'5" elite centre back that cannot be bullied. He commands that sort of respect on the football pitch, and I absolutely love that. I love that we've got him. I love that he is one of ours. I'm glad that we embarrassed Arsenal on the way to signing him as well. They went ahead and signed Timber. He played today. I honestly do not know. I mean, because I didn't watch the game live because I couldn't see where the game was, but I've essentially looked at the highlights and some of what players were doing in that game, and based off of what other people are saying, no one's had any word to say about Yuri and Timber. So yeah. There was a 5-minute period where I thought Aaron Wan-Bissaka was auditioning for number 9, and he had a couple of chances. I'm loving his confidence. Yeah, there's a couple of clips I've seen of Wan-Bissaka in that game where it's just like, bro, the guy's he's playing like he's a street performer. With the actual like genuinely skilled street performers when they're doing some tips like tricks and stuff. What was it? I can't remember. I don't think it was Kobe Minu that was doing it, but where the guy was on the ground and he was just like flopping himself around on the ground, juggling the ball, and then clearing it up the pitch to a teammate. What is this? Aaron Wan-Bissaka's just he's just like, I mean, I guess it is just the element that he knows it's a preseason and that there's not really much, much punishment with failing in when you take a risk, and I suppose it's probably an element of that. But Wan-Bissaka, I thought his positioning as well in that Arsenal game, just on average, where he was positions he was taking up, I thought was very good. It's very promising. Obviously, the only real major doubts we have with Aaron Wan-Bissaka is when the ball's at his feet. What is his output like? What does he contribute in terms of how clinical he is, or how accurate he is with his deliveries? Because priority number one, if you're an overlapping or an underlapping fullback, is that you're not just once or twice in a season ending up getting through on goal, but you're creating, you're linking things up, you're making things tick. Every position on the pitch is key because you're linking things up. You're not trying to be a player in a position that creates space or does this or does that. You're linking up. You're connecting the dots. You're taking some give and goes. You're making the run into space to receive a give and go pass as such. And Wan-Bissaka is positionally turning up. He's turning up the dial. He's definitely doing everything, I think, positionally that Ten Hag wants him to do. I think it's just really the question of his output and whether he will actually improve on his output. Um, but yeah, I think he's definitely improving. I know some people still don't rate Wan-Bissaka on the ball, and I think there's elements to it where I think it's like I think we're seeing a little bit of prime Crystal Palace Wan-Bissaka with a bit of a bit of salt flavoring, a bit of seasoning, Ten Hag seasoning to it, which is good to see because Wan-Bissaka I think had lost himself by the time Ten Hag arrived at the club. He'd completely lost himself. So the fact that he's found himself again is really, really good news to see. Shazam, big ups to you. Good to see you. Um, I don't know why everyone is surprised by Wan-Bissaka's skill on the ball. He was like that at Palace before he joined us. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer held him back. I think that's the problem. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer held quite a lot of players back. He held a lot of people back. I mean, the striker. I think what it was with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is that he had a certain way that he set up his teams, the way he approached games, the way he wanted to play football. But he simplified things so much that it was almost just like the cheerleading club. It's like you send out the cheerleaders to go play football for 90 minutes to show enthusiasm and show what you got in your locker, guys, and that's it. There's no multi layers. Like, there's no multiple layers to this. It's just a single plane, one dimensional. That's how you're going to play. Um, and sometimes people will say, "Oh, well, when we win games and we play attacking, it's just like, oh, well, Ole Gunnar's got so many options. He's got Plan B, he's got the Plan C, and Plan B worked really well." I'm just like, mate, he literally would play in reaction to what the opposition was doing. So if a team starts off attacking, we punished them. If a team started off defensively, we'd go more attacking. If spaces were open at the back, we play long ball. Yeah, it's like every situation that you saw a team start playing against Man United with, we would react to it, right? And that's literally it. There was nothing else to the game. Like we didn't prepare to play our game. We prepared to play their game, to play against their game, and that's literally it. That was the be all and end all to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer managerial tenure. Big T says Wan-Bissaka starts before Delo for me. As much as they are required to attack these days, a right back needs to be able to defend, and there ain't a better one-on-one defender than Aaron Wan-Bissaka in Europe, I don't think. Um, as far as one-on-one defenders go, I'll tell you what, Wan-Bissaka, when he gets given a task to, stick with a man, he tends to not actually lose the man, right? The only time, right, where I think Wan-Bissaka is susceptible or suspect is tracking the tracking players in the blind spot, where it's like, what is it, the back post defending, right? Where it's like the right back is facing the direction of play. He's great with tracking everything that's going on in front of him, right? And but it's the blind spots, right? And I don't think Wan-Bissaka tracks the blind spots very well, and that can change, I think, based off of how we will opt to play. I know that sometimes there's a lot of transition, there's a lot of running to do. Basically, I think if Wan-Bissaka is playing a much more proactive role where he's constantly back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, he's not really always facing the ball. There's a lot of times where he's not facing the ball, so he's got a lot more time to take in what's going on around him where the play isn't, right? So he's got a lot more ability to actually proactively deal with what's going on. So I think Wan-Bissaka will have better defending if he has this more proactive role where he's not sat in the right back position and stays there. Where if he's constantly back and forth, obviously he's got to have a massive tank of energy on him, a huge amount of tank of energy on him. But I think it's something that he's going to adapt to. And I think what Delo, what we get with Delo is that he's not as good defensively, right? Obviously, he's got a lot of attack. He's got a very high attacking work rate, and I think you saw that with the goal he scored against Nottingham Forest. I think it was um, where Anthony was laying off the ball to him, and all of a sudden, the player that was there going through on goal was Diogo Dalot when he was playing at left back. He's got a very high attacking work rate. Wan-Bissaka doesn't have, by nature, a high attacking work rate, but the system is encouraging Wan-Bissaka to keep pushing forwards, to keep working spaces, right, to get into areas of play where the system basically incorporates having players that link things up, that quick 5 yard passes, one touch football, bits and pieces like that, right? And Wan-Bissaka, it's like what I called it with the the Ten Hag seasoning. We've got the Crystal Palace Wan-Bissaka with the Ten Hag seasoning, where he's encouraging Wan-Bissaka to be going forward, to be more proactive, move a lot more off the ball, way more off the ball. And it does go on. Aaron Wan-Bissaka has got the pace and the sliding tackle to get back and correct something. He has missed behind him. Do you remember the tackle against Zaha? There's a lot of tackles that I remember Wan-Bissaka making where he's actually come from a long distance away from the attacker. A lot of tackles. He's done it quite a lot, even under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in his first season. The guy would come from off the camera. He'd literally just appear off the side of the camera, off your side of your screen. You just zoom on, just right the way across the screen, and then just straight through him. Straight through him. Your ankles turn to dust. Turn to dust. Just straight through him. But and that's that's compliment to the style, the defensive style of Wan-Bissaka, is that he's very measured in his approach to the art of defending. Now, some people will say, look, if a defender has to go to ground, that tends to mean that he's not as good of a defender. But actually, that logic only really applies for a centre back, whereas a fullback, if you're just coming from straight out of left field, straight across the pitch, wipe them out, take the ball. Just if that ball ends up out of the stadium, so be it. But you stop the attack, and you've got back into position. You've given some strong defensive output, right? And you didn't even have to be all next to the player to do it, right? And Wan-Bissaka does that better than anyone else in our defense. No one else does defend like that. No one else. Dalot doesn't do it. Shaw doesn't do it. Malacia doesn't do it. They don't come from miles away, catch up to the attacker, put in a challenge that just stops the attacking play completely. No one else does it. I mean, maybe Lisandro Martinez, but that's just Martinez. He's a bulldog. Varane doesn't go to ground. He sort of sticks with his man. I'll try and get in the way of you a bit here. Obviously, Varane's losing a bit of pace as well now. He's sort of getting to that age where he's losing a yard of pace or two. But, it's like we've got some proper defensive specialists in the team. And, I'm glad to have them. I'm very, very glad to have them. Obviously, the question really going forward is we're going to the second season with Ten Hag is how are these players going to improve? Where are they going to improve? What areas of their game that we saw last season they were lacking, are we going to see improvements to those areas of the game where they were lacking beforehand? That's the big question. That is the big question. Mason Mount in that game as well. I thought, nothing too special, nothing too fancy. I think he's still on his adjustment phase, the adjustment period. I'm glad that we've got Mason Mount that's just having a sort of integration period. I'm glad that he's having his integration period, whereas Kai Havertz is literally just turning Arsenal into a clown fest, as it was. But I think Mount, he's got a little bit little bit of working to do. I know that the biggest, you know, feat in his game that is, flawed is his set piece delivery, and based off of what we'd seen. Um, I'll just get to this in a moment. I'll address Malacia in just a second, but Mason Mount thought, yeah, I think he's in a position where he's just like, well, he's just getting more and more minutes to gel with his teammates, and I think because he's not having bad performances is a promising sign. And I think it's literally as simple as that. He's not having bad performances, so he's laying the foundations where, because he's coming from a Chelsea team that had probably a worst season on record, right? Their worst points accumulation on record, and Mason Mount didn't play an awful lot, but when he did, was absolutely awful. So obviously, yeah, before the Mount signing happened, I was just like, oh no, oh no, 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 no. But actually, since playing, played 3 45 minutes, um, and all 3 45 minutes didn't have a bad performance. He's putting solid 6 out of 10s, like with how he's performing in the game, like solid 6 out of 10s. Obviously, the first game I said he was the worst out of the whole, like the three midfielders. Kobe Mainu, based off of what he's shown up so far, yeah, that's without a doubt. Kobe Mainu's turning into some superstar baller, and I'm absolutely all for that. I'm absolutely here for it. Um, he was worse than Hannibal Maybury in the Leeds game, because Hannibal Maybury was pressing from the front. He was causing absolute mayhem for the Leeds defence, complete and utter destruction. Whereas Mason Mount was just sort of, I'll be a bit over here, a little bit over there. It's not to say he's had a bad game. He's just didn't have as good a game as the other two midfielders in that game. Leon saw improvements, saw much more improvements, was much more involved on the attacking aspect, was showed good defensive composure. You know, when Leon attacked towards our end of the pitch, and in this game, I thought again just looked steady, looked very very steady, and I think sometimes simplicity is key. Simplicity is key, and I'll just read out this comment here. That Mount was connecting all the dots, and I like that. And sometimes just having the player that doesn't need to be doing all the flashy stuff like Bruno's Hollywood passing and all of that, but just simplicity is key. And sometimes you've got Mason Mount doing that sort of a job with the energy that he has, so we can do simplicity for 90 minutes. You can't say that that's a negative. You can't say that that's a negative at all. Like, it's only a positive. So you can only grab positives from having a midfielder that's got a massive tank of energy, literally bottomless tank of energy, constantly working, attacking wise, defensive wise, high work rates, and just being a thorn in the side, even though you're not scoring hundreds of goals and not making hundreds of tackles. But if you're always in the right position defensively, you're hard to break down. If you're always involved in doing a couple of passes here and there in attacks that lead to goals, you're the unsung hero. And that's, I think, probably what Eric Ten Hag could develop Mount into, is being the unsung hero player. The one that all the praises and all the, the credit gets glazed over. It's where we put the assisters and the goal scorers on the pedestals. But what about the players that were involved in the build-up? Because you need those players to make the right passing decisions, the right pass, the execution's got to be spot on at the right time. And Mason Mount can prove to be that sort of a player. And fingers crossed that Ten Hag can turn him into that perfect player, like what Christian Eriksen was. But he can do it for 90 minutes. That can only be a positive. And if we need to rotate, then Christian Eriksen can just come on, and then happy days. That can only be a positive. Let's go back into this comment here. Are you happy with Malacia? I don't see him doing anything that makes him any better than Tellers. We just let go. I think with Malacia, because he's still sort of coming from the Dutch league, and I think there's a lot for him to offer. I think there's definitely a lot for him to offer, and I think it's most notably from when I watched him in the game against Roma in the Conference League final, that the last game he played uh, for Feyenoord before he joined us, and the guy was essentially playing as a second winger. He was literally the second left winger. The guy was so far forward, and he was just constantly, and his low center of gravity, like he was very hard to stick with. He was very, very hard to stick with. And I think we've not really played a style of football where you see that side of Malacia. So he's not going to look very special when his forte or where he does look good has not been a scenario or a case scenario at any point during United's season last season. Sometimes he had some good games, and it's just as simple as that. You just need to have a good game as just another player in the team. And if Malacia lays some foundations, just being and just having some good performances, right? You don't need to do anything special. Just have a good performance. If you're in Malacia's shoes, then that's better, right? That's better. Like I'm happy for a player in Malacia's position to be doing that, to having that sort of an output, and exactly. So he's young and will improve. Yeah. So he's still in a development phase. Like as crazy as crazy as it seems, he is still in a development phase. He's sort of getting closer to the age where he's like, well, now he's got to be established. But there's still room to improve and still room to grow. But the football team itself, the whole football team from front to back, or back to front, is changing. It's we're going through an evolution. So where Malasia is not good, not so good now, or not so stand out now, what's to say that when the football, if we change the football slightly, like the next season or the season after, that Malasia suddenly is undroppable, and Luke Shaw is benched, game in, game out. Luke Shaw benched. Malasia, good performance after good performance after good performance. Those sort of scenarios, I think we need to sort of keep in mind that that's a possibility. And I think Malasia has got potential to actually do that. So, yeah, it's just more the case that we have to wait and see what happens. Carrick was a perfect example of not a superstar, but did everything right. Exactly. Exactly. The unsung hero. Um, I mean, it's like you don't. I'll tell you what. It's like the things that you say. You don't know what you have, what you had, until it's gone, right? And Michael Carrick was probably a prime example of that. You didn't know just how important and pivotal Carrick was to your team until he's gone. Then you look back in reflection, and it's like you recognise, oh, yeah, we're missing this from our team. I remember when Carrick used to do that, and it's just like you realise it then, where it's just like Carrick, Jesus, like the guy gave us everything that we needed to make this team tick. And you don't have to be a superstar to make that work. You don't have to have the brand or the profile. You don't need to be the Sergio Busquets. You don't need to be that. You don't need to be the Casemiro. You don't need to do that. You could be the Sofian Amrabat. He's not a superstar household name. He's not. He's a grafter. He's the guy that flies under the radar. He flies under the radar. You can't detect him, but when you deep dive and you nitpick all the different things, you can look at it and say, "Oh, actually, this was happening in this game because Sofian Amrabat was doing this." And you say, "Well, actually, we've overlooked Sofian Amrabat's contributions to the game." So maybe that's what we see with Mason Mount. Hopefully, we do. Yes, Malasia's best bits videos before he joined us had me excited, but I've not seen it with us yet. And that's probably the case in point. That is, we haven't seen it just yet. I think I think there's still more work to be done in terms of the brand of football that we're playing, because I don't think there's a couple of players in the squad that we've not seen the best of yet. And based off of what we know they can do, we haven't seen, and it's just like, oh, but that's really frustrating. And maybe that's going to change as we move forward, because if we go into the next season and the football's slightly different and the way we're approaching games is different, then you might start to see the players that were lacking before are starting to get better now, right? And that's that's the barest minimum that I can ask for as far as player development is concerned. Is that that we start to see players where they weren't as good with some things before, that we start to see them get good now. I mean, there's a couple of examples where I think they're just complete lost causes and it's just not worth it. And that's Harry Maguire and Scott McTominay, both the household names of everything that's wrong with Manchester United's football team. Um, and I hope that we sell them super, super fast. But a couple of other elements, and I think Malacia, a good example of it. I think Garnacho is probably missing one or two elements where he's quite good that he arrives in clutch moments and he'll deliver that sweet pass and something. But I think that's a similar story with a lot of our wingers. It's like Anthony. There's a lot of people asking questions about Anthony. And I mean, this season, he's got a big, big, big season, massive season. He's got so much he's got to prove. And I think we saw a little bit of it this game as well. We saw a little bit of it this game. It's like the chance that he had, but he scuffed the shot. It's just like, but that's just a key moment. You've got to take the chance when it's there. Maybe Onana will allow Malacia to be further forward and show us his swing play. Exactly. And I think if you've got elements in the team that encourage other play or different things to happen on a football pitch, you allow the team to evolve, to change its approach, its style of play, it's how it plays methodically, right? It's meta, and how it approaches situations, where what the shaping is like at different parts of the pitch at different moments in the game, because the team will change shape so many times throughout a game. And I know it's like, it's just how it is with Ten Hag. The guy essentially likes to play a back two, and then essentially you've got like eight players ahead, like a 2-4-4 formation or something, or a 2-3-5 or something. And it's like that's essentially part and parcel Ten Hag's formation. So it's like Malacia, for example, where beforehand we weren't playing a back two formation with then everyone else pushing up. Malacia, his average position on the pitch is going to be a lot higher if the defense can push forward and the shaping of the team can be more, it's just more top heavy, right? Longhair Jetty, big ups to you, man. Good to see you. Hey, Hot Puffs. You were so disciplined last night. Impressed with Maina. Maina? I think you mean Mainu, but really, really impressed with Mainu. The guy it's like what I said earlier in the show. The guy looks like, his performance looks like he's been in this team, the first team, for 2 to 3 seasons now. Like he just looked like he was, like he's never not been there. And it's like what I say, that it's fine. It happens to the best of us. There's quite a few players that I'll probably completely butcher the names of, but don't worry about it. But yeah, it's like, it's so many case and points where a player, like, when they're at that stage of their career where they're just breaking through, but they look so unbelievably composed. Because sometimes you'll see a young player come in and it's just like, well, because they're young, that you can see a raw side to their game where the talent's untapped, and it's just like they're trying loads of crazy stuff and crazy things, and they look raw. They look like they are learning on the job. Kobe Mainoo's performance against Arsenal did not look like he was learning anything. He looked like he's learned everything already, and he is showing everybody exactly why he is the boss, right? He irked that sort of aura, right? He irked that sort of that presence on the pitch. The guy just looked so composed. It did not matter what was going on around him. The guy was just like, bro, it's just like I've never left. I've never not been here. I've been here for like 3, 4, 5 seasons. I'm established, right? And Big T here says Anthony wants every shot to be that Hollywood curl. Unless he can improve his accuracy, he needs to forget that and try something else. I'll tell you what he does need to improve on, and that's his right foot. Because I'll tell you what, we've seen it with preseason where sometimes Anthony props up on the left-hand side. Try and work on being a two-footed player if you can. I know that he constantly keeps trying to cut on the inside to use his left foot. It's like if he tells you that his favourite player from history is like Zlatan Ibrahimovic or something, you'd know for a fact he's lying. Like, man plays as though his idol is Iron Robin. Like, he literally plays like that's his favourite player. And and that's something that I think has just got to be as part of development as well. And with player progression, how things change, how players improve over time, and sometimes it can take time. Some players take longer to improve than others. But then, as I've said already, some players are just lost causes. They're just lost causes, lost hopes, and all of that. But yeah, I think there's a lot that Anthony needs to work on with his game, a lot to improve on, and fingers crossed that he can actually he can deliver on that, and we can see different levels to his game. Long-haired Yeti, you impressed me last night against no plan B Arteta. Schooled him. I know exactly. It's like this. Like, I'll tell you what, if I'm an Arsenal fan, I know there's some people that are saying, oh, it's only a preseason game. Oh, we'll go again. We're preparing for the season. Oh, we'll be able to do this and that. People need to wake up and realize, right, that when you sign a player, it's not always going to work out. You could sign a player that can make you worse. It is possible. It is a possibility that can happen. Like, it's like with Mason Mount. We could have signed Mason Mount. What happens if he made us worse? It was possible that Mason Mount could end up making us worse. It's always possible. There's always a chance that something can happen with that, that something can go wrong. And look, Mikel Arteta, he's got a lot of work that he needs to do. I know he's not happy that he's lost to United, and I'm sure that he'll go into the new season and he'll be, he'll be fine. I'm sure they'll start off strong. Sorry, long-haired Yeti. I know they're playing you first, and I think it's quite possible that they'll go just all guns blazing on the opening day. Just try and get as big a scoreline as possible. They'll probably be like a 3-4-0 type of game. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe it turns out to be an absolute calamity shit show. But if that happens, we'll all be here for it. So lovely stuff, lovely stuff. Mino looks naturally gifted, like a 16-year-old Rooney looked like back in the day, and that's the thing. Some people just have that element, the superstars that you can tell when a young player's coming through. The superstar element to their game, you can just see it. And it's like that feeling, that sixth sense that you have with a player. That is just like, yeah, that guy's it. That's your baller right there. And I think that's definitely one of the things one of the senses that I at least get from Kobe Minu, from how he's approached these 3 games. He just needs to keep on going with it though. Looks really good, Big T. 100%. Cannot agree with that more. Adam Taylor, big ups to you, man. Good to see you. Hi, mate. Apparently, Rasmus Højlund was a United fan as a kid. Helpful for a transfer. I think it helps on the personal term side of things, 100%. I think obviously doing deals with the clubs is a whole other matter. And I think Atalanta will try to be a hard audience to bargain with. But I think Rasmus Højlund, it's like supposedly the personal terms are agreed. If you're a United fan and United come calling for you as a football player and you're in Rasmus Højlund's position, you're going. You are going. The second that fee gets accepted, you're gone. You are gone. You are on that plane to Manchester, and you're going to play for your favourite team. And it's as simple as that. It might be a bit different if Rasmus Højlund was a Wrexham fan, and Wrexham were just like, hey, bro, do you fancy coming from Atalanta to Wrexham? Playing some League Two football. Like, obviously, that's going to be a different case in point. But but you never know. You never know. Maybe if they showed him the money, maybe he would go. But I think the only side to a player being a fan of a club in the transfer side of things, that it's only really going to help the personal terms side of things. And essentially, you can almost agree or complete like 90% of the transfer just on its own. Like some people will say, oh well, the fee agreements are the 90% of the transfers, but for me, the player's got to be convinced by what project he's going to. So if you find the agreement with the club, it's a whole other ball game trying to say to the player, well, actually, this is a good enough reason to choose us over other clubs that are interested in you. And Manchester United, because we're generating that traction and interest for players, and players are actually thinking, well, actually, I kind of like the look of United. I would not mind going to play there. That makes our jobs on the personal term side of things easier, as you would have noticed with a lot of the transfer sagas that we've had that are terms agreed tends to be the breaking news that comes out first for players that we sign or players that we have signed or are signing, right? All three of them, Mount, Onana, and also Rasmus Højlund, personal terms agreed first before the actual fees are agreed between clubs. It's just one of those things. Arteta has been there how many seasons now, and he still plays one way exactly. And I'll tell you what, if they go into next season, there's a lot more preparation for Arsenal Football Club. Plus, with the added possible element that they might drop a level, they might drop a gear, they might not play in fifth gear or sixth gear. They might not do that. They might not start games fast this season. And if they don't, they might get caught out. They might get punished. Maybe Gabriel. It's like some of the players that they had playing last season played out of their skin. What happens if that same player, or two, or three, or four players that played out of their skin last season don't play out of their skin this season? You don't get the same performances. You don't get the same performances, so you don't get the same results. You don't get the same play styles. You don't get the same success rates. It's just one of those things. Like people forget, these people are human. They can drop levels. Tough game for us if we can stop them playing like you did, then maybe. And I'll tell you what, if I think it's you probably. I mean, I don't know if last season would be anything as like a blueprint to go off of, because I know Arsenal lost complete composure to the tail end of last season when you beat them. But obviously they'll have a point to prove on the first opening game of the season. But tactically, I mean, the ball over the top, test that defence, use pace in behind because they'll want to play up high line. You constantly do that and get, your lucky breakaway goals, or you score quick 1-2 goals or something. Confidence on Arsenal? Shattered. Completely shattered. Big T, Højlund is begging to come to United. If we can agree on a fee, he is definitely coming, 100%, because, as we see with personal terms agreed, or supposedly breaking news with the personal terms being agreed a couple of days ago or weeks ago, or even months ago. I think people have said that he wanted to come to United months ago when we first generated interest, and probably before that. But once we get the fee agreed, the transfer will get done, within a flash. Will get done within a flash. Yeti just get at them from the off, and they can't deal with it. I'll tell you what, if you put Arsenal under pressure, they I don't think they've got superstar centre backs. I know some people class Saliba as world class. I don't think he is. I don't think he is world class. I don't think Gabriel's world class. Ben White isn't world class. These players can be got at, and the system, the defensive structure can be got at, and you just got to put them under pressure, and they fold. They do fold. And that's one of the complaints that I had last season. It was about November time, where I was just like, well, Arsenal can't win the league. They can't win the league. Surely not. Surely a team will actually look at Arsenal the way they play and go, okay, well, let's just go at them with this. Because then Arsenal, they get met by pressure, they'll struggle. They will. But no one pressured them enough to cause problems. So there was literally, Arsenal were getting, I'll tell you what, Arsenal were essentially being handed 3 wins for 60% of the season. 3 wins for 60% of that season in the Premier League. They still couldn't win the league. Need I say any more? Get in their face and give them a game. They don't want to nick a goal and silence the crowd. Exactly. I mean, imagine that imagine if you start the game against Arsenal like Bournemouth did in that game against the Emirates, where they had that crazy Reese, that Reese goal. Big ups to Ola. Is his name Ola? I think it is Ola. But yeah, big ups to him. I tell you what, it's Lee Gunner. Lee Gunner does that better. Does it way better than I ever could. But yeah, if you can start that game in that same manner, where it's like the opening like minute or something, you're already scored, like already into their box, shot on goal. Oh Jesus! Like yeah, get them straight away thinking, oh no, please don't concede, please don't concede. Like put pressure, give them scares, because it's like you find openings. Because it's, I mean, hopefully for your case, Zinchenko plays and Kai Havertz plays at the same time. If the Kai Havertz and Zinchenko play, you should be able to get goals. Like you should be able to score goals, hands down, 100%. They play a high line and we have pace if we can get the right ball like he did, 100%. Or press, just press. Because Mr. Bozo Gene, Gabriel Magalhaes, that people seem to have forgotten about, when he gets pressed, gets put under pressure, doesn't deal with it very well. You know, he only had like 1 or 2 games last season where, you know, he was challenged and actually had a good performance. The rest of it was just the whole team collectively as defence would soak up pressure, or just win the ball back really high up the pitch, and that was the forte of Arsenal's play style last season. So yeah, I mean, just abuse the pace. Literally play it like it's a FIFA Ultimate Team game, and you've got 99 pace players playing, you know, FUT champs or something, and just abuse the pace. Yeah, yeah, big ups to him. Adam Taylor says Sancho worth keeping. If not, seems to be putting himself in the shop window with his performance yesterday. If that's the be all and end all, then yes, I can see that definitely. But for me, Sancho, I think because we've got too much else to sort out, I think we should hold on to Sancho. I think now that also Amad Diallo's also been injured as well, so that's not great. Not great to see. But for me, it was always in my best interests to keep Sancho for another season. Just to basically fill out, and then when you've got enough time and money to play around with, that you can switch the focus to say, actually, yes, we do need to improve on players in the wide areas, but also up top. And Sancho, I think perhaps Sancho's just going to be more of a filler player. If Marcus Rashford plays on the left, or Højlund / Martial are up top with Antony on the right, maybe Sancho just comes in and will play somewhere across the front three. Doesn't matter where. And I think that's probably what we might use him going into next season. And I'm sure you'll do a good job with that there. I'm going to come to Big T's comment in just a second. So we'll address that. We'll address that comment. Yeti, Sancho looked hungry and great finish. Yeah, because I think he knows he's got something to prove. So yeah, fantastic goal. I did address that goal earlier in the stream. So if you're watching it on playback, you probably will have seen that, or if you're just joining in live, it'll be I think it's like about 20 minutes ago. Probably discussed it. But Big T says, why does Lee Gunner support Arsenal? He hates them. He doesn't hate Arsenal. He doesn't hate Arsenal. He's hated the way the club has been run, but more importantly, he has hated the way that people have accepted that Arsenal have not achieved anything noteworthy, right? Like it's like he didn't support Mikel Arteta. He said before Mikel Arteta came, I don't want that manager, so I won't support him if he comes to this club, right? And is one of the very, very few that openly and publicly stated that. But he said, look, the only time I feel like I can back a manager for Arsenal Football Club is if he's got us challenging for titles every single season. And this is the thing, if you actually watch, Lee Gunner's streams, yeah, exactly. Exactly. As a good summary, Lee Gunner hates the fact that his team isn't acting like they should be, and Arsenal and the people when you categorize a big team, right? Like, how do you explain what a big team is? A team that competes for trophies, or a team that just wins glorified positions in a league table? You'd say, well, they're a team that challenge us for they challenge for titles. They will get to FA Cup finals and win the FA Cup finals, get to Carabao Cup finals or win. They'll get deep runs in the Champions League. Like, they will play well against the world's best, like your Real Madrid's, your Bayern Munich's, and all that. It's like Arsenal are if Arsenal are a serious like big club, you wouldn't be sitting there going 5-1 against Bayern Munich, 3 Champions League games in a row, to say, well, everything's A-okay, everything's fine. And that's the thing. People realised it with Arsene Wenger when they were past it. So they started protesting to get the manager out because they wanted change. And some people say, oh, be careful what you wish for. They got Unai Emery, that got them to their first European final in the longest time. Was it 34 years or something that they got to their first European final? And it's like, sure, he, maybe underachieved in the league a bit, but he actually got Arsenal to some good positions, but he needed to be backed. I'll tell you one thing that didn't make any sense with Arsenal's progression through time is why Sven Mislintat left, because I remember that guy going absolutely ham in a transfer window on a limited budget, but then left like a couple of months later after the summer transfer window shut. I didn't understand that whatsoever. But yeah, I think Sven Mislintat should have stayed there, or Arsenal should have kept a hold of him, because I think he would have actually scouted players, signed players. I just think Sven Mislintat would have done a better job. Would have done would have been life would have been easier for Arsenal, whoever is in charge, if Sven Mislintat was going ham every transfer window, right, regardless of the budgets. But yeah, just to go back to the point here, one of the biggest problems that Arsenal have is the fan base and how they perceive where they are, right? And it's about the collective perception, or the mass majority's perception of where Arsenal are. They are a team that talk about like high aspirations or high standards and all of that. And the same thing goes for United, where we had a 6-year trophy drought, and we won a Carabao Cup. And whilst everyone's just like, "Oh, I love it," and let's see, fantastic, we're Carabao Cup champions, straight away you should be saying, right, so Ten Hag's won a trophy in his first season. Listen, Ten Hag's winning at least another trophy next season. Otherwise, he's got to go. He's gone. He's gone. If he does not win another trophy next season, because that's the expectation. That's the standard. That's the bare minimum of demands. You have to say, look, whether I say that he's got to go, if that doesn't happen, but then he comes back into the third season and starts winning everything. I mean, it's like, but at the time where he underachieved to my expectations, I would have said, but that's what should happen. That's what has to happen. Doesn't mean that I'm any less of a supporter, because at the end of the day, where we will have different expectations as to what we want as far as the best for this club is concerned. And the same goes for all the fans. The same goes for all the fans. It's like Tottenham fans. Like, you might sit them down and say, do you want to win a Premier League title? Do you wish you could win a Premier League title? It's just like, yeah, I'd love to win a Premier League title. Would you want to sign world-class players? Yeah, I'd love to sign world-class players. Okay, then so sack Daniel Levy. No, don't sack Daniel Levy. He's the best thing that's ever happened to him. It's like, seriously, it's crazy. You might as well consider it a disorder, like a social disorder or something, where it's just like what you want, you wish you could have it, but you don't like what you're going to have to go through to get it. And it's like, look at other clubs as some prime examples, right? Like, I think some people use Real Madrid as the pinnacle, right? Real Madrid is essentially the pinnacle example of this, where it's like you see the fans, they'll boo players, they treat players as the commodities, right? They'll boo players when they're playing bad, they'll cheer players when they're playing well. The people who are the standard bearers of Real Madrid say, look, Champions League, it's not a target, it's not a goal, it's a necessity. You either win Champions League or you're surplus to requirements here. And I mean, Carlo Ancelotti didn't win Champions League. He's still going to be here next season. He's still going to be here next season. He might get sacked next season if they go any worse. But it's just like, even though that the demand is that they want absolutely the best, like max out your endeavors to winning trophies, to chase down titles, to be at the very best. Because if you say that, oh, don't worry, you finished fourth place and got a trophy, that's okay, we're happy. There's no incentive straight away. If that's the message, the club look at that and they go, right, okay, so they're happy with that. They won't be disappointed. They won't be disappointed if we never go higher than that. They won't be disappointed because that's the message that they're protruding. Arsenal fans have protruded for a long time that they're happy to back a manager that's not won any trophies, aka Mikel Arteta. It's not won any trophies with his own squad, that they went backwards in the league and that they've only been progressing. But everyone's saying progression is fantastic. You know, we will celebrate that like it's a trophy, when in actuality it isn't. Because what happens, what should the message be if Mikel Arteta and Arsenal win no trophies next season, but they finish lower than second? It's regression. It's factual regression now. Like, people use the argument that we've gone up the table, right? You've gone up the table, you've progressed, you've gone up levels. But I mean, but think about it. You've gone up levels up the table. That's progression. We're on the way to winning trophies. But what happens when that message starts to, that statement, you start to feel like you should retract it when you start to go down the table, if you like regress in the league? It's like, people should not accept that. Shouldn't accept that. And so that's, so obviously some fans will feel about their clubs differently, but that's how I feel about my club. That's what I like. I want my club to be the best club in the world. Adam Taylor, Yeti, you must be pleased with the Elanga signing. Promising lad. Apologies about Lingard. Hope you filled the water bottles at least, mate. Lingard syndrome is. I'm glad that we got rid of Lingard when we did, because man, Lingard syndrome. Lingard syndrome is strong with plenty of United fans. Same thing's going on with Scott McTominay. Please, to God, just let us get rid of him. But yeah, Elanga, I think he could do bits. I think he'd do bits at Nottingham Forest, I reckon. It depends really, just right on terms of how they play football. Adam Taylor, I hated the Lingard signing from the off. He's a TikToker, not a footballer anymore. Loving seeing what Elanga brings, to be honest. Yeah. I can agree with that sentiment. Mama Flossie, hello. Big ups to you. How you doing? Hope you're well. Good. Lovely stuff. Pretty sure you're Newcastle as well, Mama Flossie. You happy with the way things are going for you in the pre-season? Big T, on that logic, no football fan can be happy unless they support City. You have to be realistic with your expectations. Arteta has actually brought Arsenal closer to winning. And that's the thing. Expectations, to be realistic. The thing is that there's a difference between expectation and demand, right? It's like supply and demand. If you don't demand more, you can't get more, right? If you don't demand more, you can't get more. You can be happy and excited in the moments, right? You can be happy and excited in the moments, like winning the Carabao Cup. Arsenal fans are talking about, well, the Carabao Cup's beneath us. Oh, they won the Tin Pot Trophy. We don't care. We're happy to win it. So you can be happy. You can be happy. And that's the thing. You can be happy, but you should demand more always. Because if you say that you're happy with what you have and you don't push to get more out of them, your club, and this is the thing, clubs do listen to their fans on media interactions. If people say that they're happy with where their club is, what's going to happen is that club's not going to have the ambition and is going to feel that demand to push to do even better, right? And that's the thing. It's like with Arsene Wenger when he said that fourth is a trophy. No, it isn't. It's just a league finish that qualifies you for a tournament. You haven't won a trophy, and that's the thing. Now it's become a big feature in English football that you can be happy, but you shouldn't be celebrating it, right? And that's the thing. Curb, like, to be realistic is to assess what's actually happening, right? And to say, well, it's like with last season, for example, before a ball was kicked, right? Before a ball was kicked, you had one side of the argument where it's just like, well, as a United fan, I want us to go win trophies. I want us to, be competing for the title. That's the demand. That's the demand. That's what you should expect your club to do, right? That's what you should expect your club to do. But in reality, I was sat here saying, well, I mean, based off of last season, we're probably going to finish seventh or something. So if we go above what we realistically expect, right, we can say, well, actually, they've gone past, they've massively exceeded what I was what I was thinking we were actually going to do. So that's where the realism side of this argument exists. That's where it exists, right? So you can be happy if you support someone else. It's just like, well, I mean, not like Nottingham Forest fans when they celebrated, um, staying up in the Premier League. I'm sure that in retrospect, right, like in reality, a Nottingham Forest fan, like, I mean, long-haired Yeti, what for Nottingham Forest, what are your demands for Nottingham Forest as an example, right? Like, are you happy to just settle for staying up in the Premier League and not changing anything, like not changing or increasing that demand? Would you be happy with that? Or do you constantly push the demand so that Nottingham Forest go from a club where it's just like, if we can stay up in the Premier League, great. Keep pushing and changing that demand. Keep pushing that demand. Keep pushing your club up. You'll start to change. You start to change and start overtaking clubs, and you keep pushing and pushing and pushing. Eventually, you're talking about, well, actually, I'd like Nottingham Forest to go and challenge for a league title this season. And of course, time, when you talk about time frames, that could be a ridiculously long like time frame away from you, right? That could be like 5, 10, 15, 20 years away, right? And obviously you need people at the club to do a good job, to do the right job, to make the right changes, to actually see the things improve in that respect. But one thing that fans have to do in order to actually be able to enact positive change, is to demand more, right? Is to demand and push your club to deliver on expectations. And that essentially that's just how a club can progress. That's how a club can grow. If you go and ask a Brighton fan, you've played phenomenal football. What do you really aspire to do? What do you really want to do? Oh, we would want to go win some trophies. We want to go, go improve the team and go, win the Premier League or something. Go like push the stature of your club higher up. And that's the one thing that United have done, is the stature of the club has gone down during the periods where we haven't won trophies. You see, we used to be regarded as one of the best clubs on the planet. One of the best footballing sides on the planet. Like clubs, when you spoke about the Premier League, you talk about, oh, Manchester United, fantastic footballing side. You don't speak about that the same way, because we've gone down. Man City have gone up to the top there, right? It's like Liverpool when they were winning trophies after trophy after trophy, donkeys years ago, when they were winning everything. But then they got to that period where it's like they're in their trophy droughts and everything, and no one regarded them the same way. The stature dropped, and it's like trying to keep pushing to get that to push your stature up, right? To grow the club and to push for your club to do better, and that's the aim of being a supporter of a club. And Arsenal signing great players, but an inept manager who's a great player coach, but tactically inept. And I think that's the thing with the managers. You've got to have multiple layers to your game, multiple layers, multiple plans. It's like Ten Hag. When he started managing, he tried to play, his tiki-taka passing style of football, with players that weren't capable. So he was getting battered at the start of the season, and then he basically decided, well, you know what, plan B it is then. Start playing defensive, strong defense, and then build it up from there. Yeah, I think we're doing good. Good to hear. Good to hear. How are you liking Tonali? Has he played yet? Is that Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes midfield looking good, looking sweet? Arteta can't see when things are going wrong. You could see that the high line needed dropping back after Anthony's shot, which he should have buried. Yeah, Anthony should have buried that shot. But I think I'll tell you one thing where I think perhaps you can tell that Arteta has still got that inept side to his game. Horrible. I've just seen another comment from Kudos there. Yeah, but yeah, I think you could tell when perhaps tactically Arteta looked, like he'd drawn the short straws on a few things. It's like when he was doing substitutions. I mean, it sort of ties in to Kudos's comment that I'm just going to highlight in a moment or two, where he's actually thinking it's the opposite, where the man management is a bit of a problem, and there are elements, there are flaws where you see it from both sides of the coin, right? There are flaws to Arteta tactically. There are also flaws to him man manager wise, right? He does things great, but there are also other things that he does not so great, right? Every manager can do that. It's like Eric Ten Hag, very, very stubborn manager, where people say, well, you lost 7-0, should have just ditched the whole team. But it's like, well, Ten Hag is a stubborn manager. Next game, we beat Betis 4-1. I mean, would we have won 4-1 if we decided to play the whole kids team? Probably not, and that would have then hampered where we were in the Europa League. So it's been 23 years since we were in the Prem, felt like we won the league. Yeah, I think it depends really. This season I want to see a plan A, a more attacking style of play, so we're not just holding on all the time. So yeah, again, changing the expectation. Yeah, wanting more. Right, cool. We achieved what we did last season. Let's go get more. Let's go push for more. And it's just constantly you've got to push that. You've got to push that. We have a plan B. We can manage a game. We need a plan A now to start challenging for mid-table and top 10. There you go. So Nottingham Forest, stay up. This summer you want to strengthen foundations and say, well, look, we want to progress. We want to go further up the table. We want to be able to push that agenda and not be happy to sit back with what we have. Let's go and sign a couple of players here and there. They think that Anthony Elanga, and I'll tell you what, if you want someone like an Anthony Elanga if you want to choose to play more expansively, I think that could be a good option for you. It's not the same sort of pressure as it is trying to play for Manchester United. Anthony Elanga might do the job for you. Might do a good. Yeah, I think it's. I think it's a good thing to see. I think it's a promising thing for Nottingham Forest, and hopefully for your sake, that's what happens. BT, maybe it's not his message, it's the way he delivers it then. I just see him being an angry fish attacking his own club and fan base and coming across as always wanting to argue for argument's sake. I mean, sometimes there are things that Lee Gunner says that I don't agree with, but most things that I can see his side of the argument, and I think it's just like, if I were to say the same thing, I would probably say it differently. So maybe it could be the case that he says something in a certain way where he actually means well, but when you think about it, you think, well, actually, I'll get vibes from it where it's not the same. But then in actuality, it's like because he means something, but you don't feel like he means that. Because I know some people will deliver different messages. It's like if Lee Gunner says, well, with the way he says that he wants his club to go and compete, it's like the message could be the exact same thing as Mark Goldbridge saying, I want United to go compete for titles. I want us to go compete for trophies. But because they say it different ways, one gets seen as an arsehole, the other one gets seen as, the word is gospel. You see, and I think both sides of the coin. They might say something in a certain way, and that's the risk. That's the risk with being someone who speaks of their viewpoints online, is that viewpoints will always be challenged by someone. It's like I can say, well, I breathe oxygen. Someone out there is going to turn around somewhere and say, you don't breathe oxygen, you breathe bullshit, and that's it. Literally, that's just the way it is. Sometimes you don't have to agree with what someone says. Sometimes you understand the message, but you don't like the way it comes across. Sometimes the way the message is delivered, you don't understand what the precipice of the message actually is. But that's the thing. That's what, because everyone's going to be different. Everyone's going to have, different. They could get different vibes from what some people say about certain things. And that's the thing. I've just seen it from Long-Haired Yeti. It's just like when Arsenal do well, and I suppose it. I think it's the viewpoint that I'm going to bring, that I'm going to introduce here. When people say that Lee Gunner will only profit off of negativity, but then he will go through and show you his like 5 best performing videos with the highest interaction, highest like ratios, but also highest viewerships, right? And most cases, you'll see that he's actually got some positive videos. I think it was like his pre-season game last pre-season against Sevilla, one of his best performing videos. Was it a Champions League final? I can't remember if it was no, it wasn't Manchester City. I think it was PSG versus Bayern Munich. That game. Phone's ringing. Lunch is being served on the table, so I've got to wrap this up hella quick. But yeah, it's each to their own, right? I'm going to quickly whiz through these comments, and then I'm going to wrap things up, guys. So kudos, I think it's the other way around. Arteta is decently tactically, but horrible man manager. You can see that side of things. Man, you're calling again, probably. Yeah. I agree. Arteta is a coach, not a manager. Yeah, that's a true statement. He is only one plan when it doesn't work out. He has nothing else. It's evident. I think with some of the substitutions, when the game goes a bit south, some of his substitutions are quite bad. I don't want another relegation battle, but it's possible. We'll see. Yeah. And I think it can only be healthy to keep pushing to demands that your club try and grow and do better. I do feel that we've got a best 11 by the end of the season. Okay. There's Big T. They win when he's overjoyed. You can see it. Yeah. Manu calling again. Possibly. They might. I think it's probably John Murto. He's probably a bit angry that I keep calling his Murto madness thing as something negative. Avon calling for his new makeup. Jesus. Your expectations have to be built around the tools that you have. The expectation is that the expectation on what, by being realistic, or what you want, because I think those things you need to distinguish the two. By expectations for what you actually have, or what's factual, what you've got right now, or what you want them to get you. And I think those two different things sit at two different levels, and they sit at two different levels for a very good reason. Because realistically, it's like, I don't know. Do you know what I'm eating for lunch? I'm going to find out when I go down there. But yeah, I'm going to have to wrap this up super fast. But yeah, it's like if you have a relegation team, right? Or if we sold most of our first team players, realistically, you sit there and say, "Oh, we shouldn't achieve much," and that's realistic. You shouldn't achieve much. You'd probably be like, top half of the table, right? Finish top half of the table. But what you want is you want to be going to far above and beyond. I want us to win 38 games a season. It's never going to happen. It's not going to happen. But the thing is that is, as much as it's unrealistic to demand it to actually happen, because it's not realistic. You say, well, you want to. So what's your compromise? Get as close to winning to 38 games as possible. Get as close to it as possible, right? I still can't believe we drew against City. Highlights need the Twilight Zone music, absolutely. But anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap this up now. Big ups to everyone who dropped in and like more outdoor videos. I'll do some topless videos for you. I might start an OnlyFans if I get enough of a backing, perhaps. I might have an OnlyFans before Henry Wright does. You know, if you know, you know. I might have a OnlyFans before Henry Wright does. So those sick bastards. But even so, I'm going to wrap this thing up real quick. Big ups to everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Massively appreciate, honestly, having you guys come in and just to discuss topics and having things to debate about. I mean, Big T, there some compelling arguments. I think it's quite common arguments that are made, but it's always worth to see both sides of the coin. I massively appreciate having the other viewpoints as well in the chat, because it encourages the show to add a bit of excitement. It makes things more challenging, exciting for me as well. So yeah, massively appreciate everyone who's dropped in comments. Thank you very much for those who've liked the stream. Do also make sure that you are subscribing if you are new, and if you haven't done so already. As for what's going to happen the rest of the day, I don't know if there's anything else really to cover for today, so this will probably be the only video for today. But you never know. Who knows? There might be something later on tonight. It's things like that happens. Yeah. So lovely stuff. Great show. Thank you very much, Yeti. Big ups to you. Have a good one. Thank you. You too, kudos. We discussed it respectfully, and that's the difference. So that's the important thing. Even if someone, the most important thing is that if you don't agree with someone's argument, you don't relegate yourself to saying that person's an idiot. Oh, he's less of a person because of the viewpoints that we don't agree with. So, Big T, there's some viewpoints or questions that you have that I don't see the same answers to. But I would never sit here and say that you're an idiot or you're anything less than, because, you have your own viewpoints for how you feel about a club, and that's everyone's free given right. And to express them on a public space, that's always a key thing that we should encourage people to do, but not to seek to draw battle lines with it, if you will, because I know there's a lot of times where you see people do things like that and it gets all a bit personal and stuff. There's no point to it. There's no reason to make things more personal in that respect. But anyways, I'm gonna love you and leave you guys. Big ups to everyone, and I will be out skis. I'm gonna go enjoy me some lunch and kick back for the afternoon. Opinions are like castles. We've got everyone wants to see it. Big ups to you, Yeti. But yeah, we'll see you again real soon. Ciao for now.